Welcome to episode 5: Anger, Frustration, Lack of Gratitude, and Patience. Let me just start by saying that these are behaviors that typically result from other stressors that we're managing poorly. Let me also remind you that everyone, even the calmest, most dignified people, fall from grace from time to time. Have you ever stood in a line, say, like at an amusement park for 2.5 hours, only to get on an 8-minute ride? Did you, during that time, complain, even just a little? Standing, waiting, maybe affected by the weather or the people around you? What about when you're calmly driving along at the speed limit and someone flies up behind you, leaving you barely enough room to see their bumper, and then continually follows you this close for as long as they possibly can? Did you remain calm? Did it anger or frustrate you? If not, well, my friend, then you're one of those few who have mastered patience and you're incredible at emotional regulation. Congrats to you. But if you responded with a resounding yes or been there, then you may want to keep listening to this episode. What is emotional regulation? Emotional regulation is the ability to have control over your emotional state. Sounds pretty simple, right? To have this ability means you've also positioned yourself to immediately deploy coping strategies that help you regulate your anger or frustration. Rethinking a challenging situation or focusing on reasons to feel happy, relaxed, or calm are a great start. The last couple of weeks, I've discussed some great ways to help you create emotional regulation. Things like meditation, breathing, positive actions, accountability, but let me remind you that anger and frustration are also huge stress creators that affect your body in many ways. And I guess we already know that, and that is why we are having these conversations. Remember back in episode 1 when I talked about your hypothalamus, that tiny little control tower in your brain that sends messages to your body to disperse these stress hormones? Those stress hormones are the ones that set off your body's flight or fight response. I can't talk, fight or flight response. Every time you get angry or frustrated, lose patience, or even just have a lack of gratitude, you trigger that hormone. You may not experience every symptom, but I'm sure you can relate with at least one of them: racing heart, dizziness, disorientation, tense muscles, erratic or heavy breathing. I know I have been in a situation where I have been tailgated and it did make my muscles tense and it did make me very upset. And although I couldn't tell if I was breathing heavy, I'm sure my breathing changed, because it's frustrating because that person is not only endangering my life and my passengers' lives, but their own life and the life of everyone around us, by doing that. If I needed to stop, they might rear end us. And, I think about these things when we're on the freeway at 70, 80 miles an hour. I'm talking like in LA. Here in Washington, people don't drive that fast, but I've been in many situations in LA where that's happened to me. And it happens a lot here in Washington too. I think the normal speed limit here is 60, but most people do 70 anyways, on I-5. So anyway, and once those stress hormones are triggered, they start to take a toll on your physical health. They put you at risk for other physical and mental conditions. We want to avoid feeling anger or frustrated, right? But feeling angry or frustrated for the rest of your life is nearly impossible. However, we can learn how to manage these stressors and how to help combat future complications such as high blood pressure, irritability, anxiety, headaches, high blood glucose, weakened immune system, insomnia, all of those things that go with that stress hormone that's triggered when we are feeling angry or upset or frustrated, or when we lack gratitude. We usually, that's another emotion, a byproduct of the anger. That's how it makes us feel. So let's discuss how we do that. How do we combat that? Delaying spontaneous reactions as needed is the best way to regulate your emotions. Delaying spontaneous reactions. Well, how do we delay how do we delay spontaneous reactions? Whew, I'm really good with the mouth this morning. Remember that saying from your parents, like from your parents' generation, that goes something like, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." Well, I disagree. I think our brains are very powerful and powerful enough to relearn anything. I believe it's about discovering the way that works best for the individual. So you got to ask yourself first, what type of learner are you? Do you read knowledge and retain it? Are you more of a listening learner, or do you learn through experience? Can you listen to my podcast and say, "Oh, I've got all these great ideas," and imply them? Or do you need to actually be part of the situation and learn the lesson the hard way, so to speak? Or can you just read how to do something in a book and immediately execute that and have the emotional response? There are all different types of learners out there, and you may be one of these learners, or you may be all of them together. One of them is going to be more effective than the other. So let's break down and unpack some healthy and not so healthy, healthy and unhealthy emotional regulation strategies. So at least this way you have some way to identify. So first, we'll start with healthy emotional strategies. I'm sure you guys could name a few right off the top of your head. So here's one: talking with friends or a life coach, therapy, seeing a mental health counselor, professional psychologist, psychiatrist, something along those lines. Exercising, we've already discussed that, the benefits of physical health. Writing in a journal, I think I mentioned that, can't remember, but journals are so very important because they also are a way for us to keep track of how we were feeling yesterday, last month, last year, 10 years down the road if you keep them that long. And they're really great to see progress that you've made or mindsets that you've changed. They can be really inspirational for you. But journals are a way to keep track of that, a very good tracking device on how we're feeling. I know I've looked back at a couple journals and went, wow, I was kind of a screwed up teenager. That's okay because everything in life is temporary and I'm no longer that screwed up teenager. However, I made it through. It took a lot of effort on my part, but that's what got me here today. And that's another reason why I like sharing this with you as well. So moving on, healthy emotional strategies, meditation. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Um, it does meditation does reduce your heart rate by having you work through some breathing activities and clearing your mind. We talked a little bit about those float tanks or deprivation tanks and how those are really good for like time of meditation or time for you to get some rest. Taking care of yourself when you're physically ill. Please take care of yourself if you're physically ill. Get fluids, get rest, seek medical attention if necessary. Infections require antibiotics, viruses don't. Just an FYI. Rest. We need proper rest. Sleep is so important to our mental and physical health. Sleep deprivation, sleep disorders, all of that affects your overall health, and it does so really quickly. Uh, I'm sure you may have noticed that once or twice in your lifetime. If you've stayed up too late and gotten up too early, you're usually okay the first or second day, but by the third day, you are dragging. You can't just get 5 hours of sleep every day. You don't feel well. You can, obviously, you can do that, but you're not going to feel as good, and your body is not going to be as healthy or as strong as it would be if you're getting your proper rest and sleep. So again, that has to do with time management. What time are you setting a schedule for yourself? I mean, I've had clients that have broken it down to the point where they have put what time they're going to sleep in their schedule and what time they're waking up. And during that time, they take no phone calls. They don't have a TV on. They really try to make sure that they're getting that rest. As you create this cycle becomes learned behavior. They become habit, positive or negative. So what we're talking about right now are healthy emotional strategies, ways to keep this positive cycle rolling forward. Paying attention to negative thoughts that occur before or after strong emotions. This is very important. You may even want to journal about this. When you have a negative thought after a strong emotion, say, like you get angry or you get frustrated, and then what's your negative thought? Like, for instance, that person, behind you in line at the amusement park, you've been waiting 2 hours and now they're coughing and sneezing and playing with their hair and they're hitting you with their purse or their backpack because they're standing too close to you. I mean, there's all these different things that after your patience has dwindled down after that first hour and a half, now on your second hour, and literally every little thing, the way somebody is talking, the way they may be sniffling, or the perfume they're wearing, every little thing is bothering you. Pay attention to your negative thoughts that happen after strong emotions. Okay, guys, this is really important. And journal about those. I'm interested to hear feedback from what those are. And the reason I'm asking you to pay attention to them is because they're going to be anchored into your emotional responses as part of this emotional regulation. Okay, moving on. Noticing when you need to take a break and taking it. Please, if you need to take a break, take a break. That's a 5-minute break, a 10-minute break. You have to lock yourself in the bathroom and meditate on the toilet. Just do it. Thanks, Nike. Uh, Anyways, also, I want to add in honoring self care, taking care of yourself inside and out. Because when we feel healthy and strong or beautiful and confident, we also feel positive and happy. It's a reaction to an action. Jogging a mile or 10 miles or going to a yoga class or mixed fit or whatever it is that you're doing, just stay true to yourself, take care of yourself, feel beautiful, feel strong, feel healthy and happy and confident. It's a positive action to it's a positive reaction to your actions. Okay, so now let's identify some unhealthy emotional strategies. And I know some of these you may not like to hear, but I think it's important that we identify them. So, abusing alcohol or other substances. Now, I would almost go as far as saying using alcohol or other substances. But I said abusing, and when I said that, what I mean by that is overconsumption of substances. If you're having a glass of wine with dinner every night, 7 days a week, maybe it's not overuse, maybe it's not abusing, but maybe it is. And that is for you to define on your own because you will know if it affects you. Does it affect your sleep? Does it affect your physical well-being? So that's really something for you to define. But I would almost go as far as saying using alcohol or other substances because they create a different environment for us. So if we are using those, especially if we're using those as coping strategies, oh, I had such a long, hard day at work, or frustrates me, or I can't wait till it's the weekend so I can go drink. You are anchoring your substance of choice to your emotion, and that can be super unhealthy in the long run. Okay, moving on. Self harm, cutting, scratching, burning, carving words or symbols into your skin, hitting, punching yourself, banging your head up against, you know, uh, anything, the wall, body parts, any surface, piercing the skin with sharp objects, pulling your hair, picking existing wounds. That is an unhealthy emotional strategy, and I do not wish for you to harm yourself ever. So please, if you are doing that, take this moment to reach out to someone and let them know so that they can help you because I love you and I know someone else in this world does too. And I don't want to see anybody self harming themselves. I'm already getting ready to make myself cry. That's how much love and compassion I have for you. Okay. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this because I do this for you. Okay. Some other unhealthy emotional strategies would be withdrawing from difficult situations or walking away from conversations you don't want to have. It's okay to set healthy boundaries, but if you are consistently not having those difficult conversations, you are creating a negative behavior and habit that will not serve you in the future. So sometimes it's important to have those difficult conversations. And sometimes we have to set healthy boundaries before those conversations so that we know when they can occur, how they can occur, what can be said, things like that. We can also have many of variables that go into that. Physical or verbal aggression with yourself or with others, screaming, yelling, cursing, profanity. That's the first thing I want to do when I get angry. Cursing, profanity. Yeah, you know, I have to say I slip up on those words a lot and I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress too, but they show passion, they show emotion. And so if we can really stay focused that that is an unhealthy behavior and work on that, that's great. But not holding you to the fire for a little cursing or profanity when you're upset. But just remember, it is all part of a cycle. If you're on social media, you're using social media and you are excluding your other responsibilities, you are spending more time on social media and showing up for work late, not doing the things you're supposed to be doing, not taking care of yourself, you have responsibilities. And if social media is interfering with those responsibilities, that is an unhealthy emotional strategy. And I can just say I'm seeing quite a bit of this behavior in middle school age children, which is quite concerning. But it's also part of some of the challenges we've been dealing with the COVID pandemic and having our children at home. So, and I am the parent of a middle schooler, so I can relate. I admit I've been in seasons of my life where I didn't always choose the best strategy. I just admitted that to you again. Um, but it's what brought me to where I am today. And I was able to learn what works and what doesn't. And I didn't know what I didn't know then. So I had to learn and so I could grow. And I have. And I'm sharing this information and content with you. And in this book that I've been working on for the last few years, which is actually now turned into a self titled documentary, which I am co producing, writing, and directing. Um, you guys will get to know a little bit about me and my background and some of the challenges that I've overcome. And hopefully, those will inspire and encourage you. And honestly, I hope these segments here on the Wellness Warehouse podcast can be resources and valuable content for you to learn and grow. I mean, even if I can help just one person, I think that's worth it. We've been discussing emotional regulation and how to combat, reset negative emotional responses, right? I want to talk for a minute about emotion dysregulation. Emotion dysregulation is the term that's used to describe an inability to regularly use healthy strategies to diffuse or moderate negative emotions. So, first, let's unpack what causes emotions to feel so overwhelming. It is important to note that the experience of an emotion isn't always what leads to the difficulties. Aha moment. Um, it's the interpretation of this emotion that tends to rack up feelings and a sense of not being able to tolerate them. Maybe you've heard the term vicious emotional cycle. Our emotions, thoughts, and behavior are all linked together. And it's so easy to get caught up in that vicious emotional cycle, right? And that vicious emotional cycle is, again, that washing machine, that cycle of those negative thoughts and behaviors that we have all linked together. Thought patterns become habits, and habits become behaviors, such as the cycle we become trapped in. Now, if these are happy thoughts and positive habits, then trap me inside that loop because I'll call it a blessing. But typically individuals get caught up in a situation and they just, I mean, when they get caught up in a situation, they just don't know how to navigate or respond. To such is that fight or flight response that's triggered, and then an anchor is placed. So if they respond negatively, then again, that anchor is placed. It's removing that anchor and redoing, so to speak, redoing the process, going back and resetting, reorganizing our thought process so that we respond with a positive behavior. So when that trigger is activated, the response plays out again and again. The patterns created, the behaviors formed, and the response is subconsciously the same. Subconsciously, meaning we just do it, right? We just boom, 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 we just react. So, what do we need to learn? And react and response are two different things. We want to respond, we don't want to react. React is the subconscious um, action that happens when we're not thinking about it. And those are usually those are our behaviors, the things that we have created in patterns and cycles. So, what do we need to learn to pay attention to? What do we need to reset, re anchor to learn new responses? I know I've used the term anchor a few times, and I realize that you may be wondering what that means. Let me explain briefly what an anchor is in our conscious and subconscious minds and how it works. So, as you know, I've studied both neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavioral therapy, and I am a practitioner for both. So, I do implore or imply um, deliver this type of therapy with my clients. So, the anchor is really where we go back through the thought process and we find out where it is, what happened. We discuss what happened, what negative response we had, and we remove that negative response and we replace it with another one. So, that is essentially what an anchor is. And we do that through, and these are things you can do with yourself And sometimes it's done through a feeling. I know several of my colleagues have used like the little rubber band around the wrist. Lots of different opinions out there, but it could be as easy as just brushing the tip of your finger. And so when you're resetting this new behavior, um, maybe you just rub your fingertips together. So you're like, oh, okay. Here's this person following behind you. I'm going to give you a quick example. There's this person following behind you. They're making you mad. Both your hands are on the steering wheel, so we can't use our hands. So we blink twice. Okay. Oh, they're following too close. You immediately want to get angry at the way this person's behaving, and it's already starting to make your blood boil. And you tell yourself, I'm not going to respond this way. And you blink twice, blink, blink. Okay. And you don't respond the way you would normally respond. That's your first anchor. Doing that again and again, a cycle to form a new behavior. So we usually always need a trigger to be able to do that. Some people don't. They just tell themselves at that given moment, I'm going to respond. But usually that blink, blink is the cognitive function that allows us to reset that. So, anyways, we can talk more about that later. So, the way the thought, emotion, behavior relationship works is different for everyone. As I mentioned earlier, it may be different for each individual. So, you have to try a few things to see what works best for you. However, you can start by asking yourself a few questions. What emotions are easiest for me to tolerate? Which ones are hardest? Do I want to use all these behaviors? What are some specific thoughts that may trigger negative emotions for you? What are some specific thoughts that may trigger positive emotions for you? Do you have any behaviors that you use to calm down your feelings? If you don't have any yet, let's get some. And then what are the underlying beliefs you have about yourself or your other people or life in general? Do you perpetuate negative cycles? Those are really good questions, underlying beliefs. Questions to ask yourself. What are your underlying beliefs about yourself? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about others? How do you feel about life in general? This last year has really been, and I want to say year and a half now because we're already into June of 2021, but this last year and a half has been really challenging for all of us. And so, good on you for taking the time to listen to my podcast and really try to help yourself to gain knowledge, to move forward, to work on self care and self confidence. I just appreciate that. So, anyways, those are a few questions you can ask yourself. Lack of gratitude and lack of patience are stemmed from the anger and the frustration we feel, which are things that we're talking about re-anchoring. But to sum it up, or in conclusion, we discussed what emotional regulation is. We learned what unhealthy strategies are. We identified what healthy strategies, still can't talk, strategies should be applied to coping and regulating our feelings and emotions, and unpacked what causes emotions to feel so overwhelming, what we need to pay attention to, what we need to reset or re-anchor, or new responses that we can learn. Um, did I miss anything? I don't know. Anger, frustration, lack of gratitude, and patience, they all stem from those behaviors we create through the regulation of our emotions. So let me hit on gratitude and patience just again for one more minute. It's been said that the connection between gratitude and happiness is multidimensional, and I think that is so true. It was revealed by neuroscientists that the reason why some of us are naturally more grateful than others is the neurochemical differences at the central nervous system. People who express and feel gratitude have a higher volume of gray matter in the right inferior temporal gyrus. That was from the Zahn, Garrido, Mall, and Grafman book, 2014. If that topic interests you about gray matter and your central nervous system, the more neuroscience, um, neurochemicals, you can visit this website where I pulled this information from, and it's positivepsychology.com, neuroscience of gratitude. And that just discusses more of the scientific values of neurochemical differences in the central nervous system, and how our brains respond, gray matter, and those things. Expressing gratitude can help drive an individual to a sense of purpose and direction in their life. It induces self love and compassion for others. It creates positive emotions such as happiness and joy by producing feelings of pleasure and contentment. I strongly believe that gratitude impacts our overall health and well being. Do you keep a gratitude journal? If not, I recommend grabbing one and sit down and journal some things that you're grateful for. I've been talking about selling one of these on my website for a while. That's something I think I might do here in the future, in the coming months. Keep an eye out for that. And if you don't know, I have my website is www.foundations with an S, plural, CTK.com. So that's www.foundationsctk.com. And that's Foundations by Coach Tinney. It's a clothing line that I created back in 2019 that was developed as an extension of my coaching and therapy practice that's centered around developing strategies for personal health and wellness and really just cultivating deep self love. The purpose behind the collections is to encourage you to rediscover your own power and happiness. I just believe that purpose fuels passion and passion drives happiness. And I want my garments and accessories to be a foundation of your love and your strength and your gratitude. So if you haven't already, check it out, Foundations by Coach Teeny online. And hopefully in the coming months, I'll have a gratitude journal up there that you guys can purchase and write in. So, patience. The ever famous Guns N' Roses tune. Have a little patience. Oh gosh, I'm singing now and I can't sing. Okay. Impatience is an emotion on the anger spectrum, and that's why I thought it would be beneficial for us to discuss it on this episode of Anger and Frustration, this segment. It brings me to the question: is patience innate or is it learned? The amount of patience a person has is based on both regulation and skill. Because of our individual chemical and structure and brain responses, some people are going to experience a faster stress response, which means they'll have less patience. And some will have the opposite, a slower stress response, which means more patience. But since it's both, since it's not either innate or learned, it's both. I know that you can learn and develop the skills you need to regulate your emotions and gain more patience to form habits and behaviors that will keep you mentally and physically healthy. Studies have shown that patience can reduce depression and promote pro social behavior like compassion. The brain chemical serotonin sends messages through the brain and influences many behaviors like mood and sleep. So, as much as I'd like to unpack more about the science behind how our brain processes these chemicals, let me just get to the reason you're here so that you can learn how to have more patience and manage your anger and frustration. Okay, great. So, here are a few tools or strategies that you can use to cultivate more patience in your life. And I've just made a short list of them. Do you feel rushed? Ask yourself why you're in a hurry. Oh, we just had an episode on that, didn't we? Always being running late, always running late. So really you just need to take the time. And if you do feel like you're always running late or you're always in a hurry, maybe just recentering, taking a look at your schedule and recentering some time so that you have more time to get from one place to another, or maybe eliminating some things that aren't serving you. Find quiet time every day to reflect on your responses, both positive and negative. Any situations that you had, any challenges during the day, and how you responded to them. Journaling that, again, journaling is so amazing. Journaling that gives you a record of how you responded. So it gives you something to be able to weigh against in the future so you can see if you're learning or growing. Hang around people who have patience. Yes, because, the more we hang around people that have what we want, the more we become like them. And I was just saying the other day, well, we might be a lot like our family or our spouse because we've spent so much time with them over the last year and a half. But if you have friends who have patience, hang out with them. Um, think of things that you've gained by being patient. Also, time management, calendars, whether you have it on your phone or your tablet or put them both. Maybe we need more calendars, one in your bedroom, one in your home office, one on your phone. Sync everything together so that you have your calendars. Put more time in those schedules. I want to share a quick story with you. This just reminded me of that. About 6 years ago, I had this client, and her spouse was really unhappy with her because of the amount of hours she was putting in at her business. She's self employed. I believe she did some type of specialized massage. And I told her, that she needed to book her husband as she would a client. I mean, she valued her clients. She was really busy. She was doing everything at her business. She was her own accountant. She was doing all of the therapy. She was doing all of the medical billing. And it just took up a lot of her time. I mean, she worked 10-hour days, 10 plus, and then she'd go home and was tired. So I told her, I said, you value your clients, they pay you for a service. If you value your marriage and relationship, you need to do the same thing. So she was a little reluctant at first, but she started booking in her husband, booking in time for her husband. They started going on dates again. And lo and behold, their relationship began to flourish, both intimately and financially, because both of their needs were being met. So they both were feeling more gratitude, more confidence, more security. They became more intimate. It just really built their relationship. And then because they were doing so well, they actually became more financially well off because of their attitude and their grace. And so, I mean, everything is a cycle in life. It's important to stay positive and take these techniques and strategies that I'm sharing with you today and run with them as much as you can. Also, think of things that you've gained by being patient. Maybe write down a little list of what you think you've gained by being patient, and then focus on some short term goals. I really feel like short term goals help us feel empowered and confident. Um, and that's emotionally based. So that can cultivate patience and gratitude in the long run, too. And, practice, practice, practice. Anything we practice, we get better at over time. Just keep going. I think that sums it up for this episode. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Really, give yourself a pat on the back because you are doing a remarkable thing. Equipping yourself with these tools is a form of self love, self help. You're being proactive, and I'm so, so proud of you for taking the time out of your day to be here, to encourage yourself, to try to do better for yourself, and to learn and to grow. I love you. Keep going. With gratitude, Coach Teeny. Until next time.